The Theory of Everything by Dr. Alon Giladi. Article 5. Back forward to the theory of everything in being.
And if I continue the same rationale regarding the greatest question of all in science, how will we arrive at the theory of everything in being? I answer, we will arrive at the theory of everything if we take one step back and correct the erroneous developments that are based on the erroneous theories of special relativity, general relativity, and quantum mechanics. I am already saying this explicitly. From what is called the Einsteinian project of special and general relativity, neither relativity nor the concept of space-time, nor the idea of the curvature of space-time will remain. What will remain is the photoelectric effect, and part of the formula that establishes a connection between energy, mass, and the speed of light, and nothing else. From the quantum mechanics project, uncertainty will not remain, nor the idea of a particle that is also a wave, nor coincidences, nor the stories of the observer who decides what reality is, and so on. What will remain is the quantum itself, the portions, the frequencies that are not the exclusive domain of light. This, and nothing more, is what will remain of quantum mechanics. And if you tell me you claim that all the foundations of modern science are wrong and falling apart, but in reality we see impressive technological development, how does this work out? After all, we are told that technology developed on the basis of the theory of relativity and on the basis of quantum mechanics. Well, when we really look at the body of things, it turns out that technology developed on the basis of the photoelectric effect, on the basis of the relationship between energy, mass, and the speed of light, which is not the only relationship, and on the basis of frequencies. Technology could have developed, and even easily, even without the stories of special and general relativity, and also without the stories of uncertainty and the like of quantum mechanics, stories that are ultimately nothing but mumbo-jumbo that has been going on for 120 years. And now, having said that, it is time to prove them and to present an alternative. This alternative will not stand as another cult, but as a scientific alternative, a doctrine of everything that will stand from now on as long as it is not refuted, if it is refuted. The path to the doctrine of everything, crossing the Rubicon 2025, passes through the failures of doctrines that cannot be unified because they are wrong. It passes through the question of why, through the finger that stops the disaster in the dam, and through supreme intelligence and courageous leadership according to it. Supreme intelligence that the potential for is in each and every one of us, and not in any convention, not in any cult, and not in any religious cult sages of any kind. Breaking, question, solution. The three elements of the breakthrough. Why, a finger in the dam, and the supreme intelligent leadership of each and every one of us. This is the human spirit that is supposed to lead humanity to the stars outside and the stars inside. And to begin this fantastic journey to the stars and back, the wonderful journey to the theory of everything, it is appropriate to trace the failed path that led to the two central teachings of non-rational, subjective science, a science that turned from an intelligent science into a subjective religion, the theory of special and general relativity and quantum mechanics. When we observe the evolution that led to Einstein's theory of special and general relativity, a wonderful development is revealed to us. A development that began in the 1830s and ended at the beginning of the 20th century, between 1905 and 1915. Everything that has happened since then, in science and physics, has practically also been integrated into philosophy, law, politics, values, and art, in the essence of modern man. And the reason for this is simple. The claim about the relativity of time and space fits in well with the claim about the relativity of truth, that there is no absolute truth to strive for, that everything is relative. So too do quantum mechanics with regard to uncertainty, absurdity, meaninglessness, chance, and the idea that it is the human observer who decides what reality is, who determines how reality looks. All these erroneous explanations of reality went well together. As they say, the stars aligned, along with the decline of both philosophy and faith. This history begins in the 1830s, when the scientist James Clerk Maxwell unified the vacuum constant of the electric field and the vacuum constant of the magnetic field, that is, between the potentials of these two fields. When Maxwell unified these two constants, that is, multiplied them by a certain formula, the result obtained is exactly equal to the speed of light in a vacuum. In 1887, the scientists Michelson and Morley tested, in a famous experiment, the relationship between the speed of light, a constant determined according to Maxwell's formula, and the ether, which was considered at the time to be the mediating factor in the existence of light. Why? Because they believed that no wave could propagate in space without there being something in this space. And if the wave propagates in a space in which there is a medium, such as the ether, then that medium must affect the light. That is, it must slow it down. Therefore, Michelson and Morley wanted to test whether the ether does indeed affect light. In their famous experiment from 1887, they tested one arm of light, moving in the direction of the Earth's motion, against another arm of light perpendicular to the direction of the Earth's motion. In this way, they wanted to test what would happen when the arm of light parallel to the Earth's motion left a certain point and returned to it, exactly the same distance as the arm of light perpendicular to the motion. To their amazement, it turned out that the light arrived at both arms at exactly the same time, a finding that seemingly denied the existence of the ether, which was supposed to cause a difference between the speed of light parallel to the Earth's motion and the speed of light perpendicular to it. To try to resolve this contradiction, which was perceived as a fundamental contradiction for understanding the universe, mathematician Hendrik Lorentz decided to look at the experiment and observation in an innovative, brilliant, and astonishing mathematical way. In front of him stood two arms of light, one horizontal and one vertical, in both of which the same speed of light was measured, and he nevertheless sought to prove the existence of the ether. To this end, Lorentz set up a new equation, within the framework of which he distinguished between the time and distance that the stationary observer sees, two equal arms, and the time and distance of someone who is supposedly inside the light of someone who is moving at the speed of light. In this equation, the time component of the moving observer is lengthened, and the space component is shortened. Lorentz's explanation was that it is not time itself that lengthens, but that the clock that measures it slows down due to the physical effect of its presence in the ether. At the same time, the space or length is shortened because physical forces of the ether affect it in a way that shortens it. In doing so, Lorentz established an equation in which the constant speed of light, the equal lengths of the arms, and the existence of the ether was simultaneously preserved, a clear attempt to square the circle. The young student Albert Einstein arrived at this reality and said, "Wait, if Lorentz's formula works, if the arms are equal, if there is no ether that shortens the traveler's space and slows down his clocks, and if the laws of physics hold, then the logical conclusion is that the mathematical model itself is reality. According to Einstein, the ether does not exist, and therefore time itself lengthens, and space itself shortens. This leads to a revolution in humanity's perception of reality. Not constant time, but relative time. Not constant space, but relative space. And this is precisely where the double and persistent error lies. Instead of concluding from Michelson and Morley's experiment that the ether does not exist, an artificial and problematic mathematical formula of Lorentz was put forward. And after it became clear that the ether does not exist, instead of looking for another model, Einstein turned that artificial formula, which was intended to save a non-existent entity, into reality itself, without asking what time is, what space is, and without checking whether there is an alternative that does not contradict the laws of physics and does not impose on reality what is not in it. This move is reminiscent of Einstein's move against Planck, for which he received the Nobel Prize. Regarding the issue of light as a quantum raised by Planck, Planck believed that this was an artificial model and not reality. Einstein, in his genius, turned the model into reality, but against an existing object, light itself. In contrast, Einstein's error regarding Lorentz was that he turned an artificial model intended to save an object that does not exist at all, the ether, into reality. Hence, the double error. This error continued from the special theory of relativity to the general theory of relativity to the idea of curved space-time, to the cancellation of gravity, and became error upon error. As mentioned within the framework of these fantastic brilliances, Einstein also came to the insight that light is not continuous but acts in portions, in quanta, the photoelectric effect, for which he received the Nobel Prize. On the other hand, the famous formula that Einstein arrived at, E equals mc squared, and which was set forth in the fourth article of the special theory of relativity, is not required by the theory of relativity itself at all, and is not in itself a correct formula.